Namaste everyone. Thank you so much for coming to hear about this topic tonight. This one life, is it but a flash in time? It is actually just a flash in time. Our program tonight is going to begin with some meditation. Then we'll go into tonight's discussion on this topic, and then we're going to finish up with 10 or 15 minutes of kirtan. So a great evening lined up. So let's hop straight into it and begin with our guided meditation. So we'll go through various phases of the meditation, from breath awareness to mindfulness to mantra meditation on transcendental sound, and also a yogic spiritual meditation called Aham Brahmasmi. So let's begin. Let's close our eyes. It's the easiest way to begin. It just helps to remove any external distractions, and of course there is going to be plenty of internal distractions with the mind. What we need to do is learn to tolerate the mind. The mind is constantly putting forward all kinds of propositions, all kinds of thoughts and feelings. In this practice, we don't fight with the mind or against the mind, but we learn to tolerate its demands and just always draw back into our meditation. So let's begin just by listening to the music. And if you want to take 2 or 3 nice long deep breaths just to help settle in. Now we bring in meditation on the breath. We become aware of each inward and outward breath. So be fully present for the length of your inward breath, and be fully present for the full length of your outward breath. Now we should find it easier to feel the rhythm of each breath. There's a gentle ebbing and flowing of our breathing. So let us focus in a little bit on that experience, that sensation of the gentle expansion and relaxation of our body with each breath. Let us move into simple mindfulness meditation practice, beginning with the awareness that I am the observer or the silent witness of my breath. So we're not actually meditating as such on the breath, but we have this awareness that I am the observer of each inward breath, and I am the observer, the watcher of each outward breath. As we move our mindfulness practice to another level, we now become aware that we are the silent witness of the stream of thoughts which is ever passing through our mind. So in the same way as you may visualize sitting on the bank of a stream, just by a stream, and all kinds of things, animals, pieces of tree, branches, different things may be floating in that stream, and we're simply observing, calmly, peacefully watching. We are not in the stream swimming, we're actually on the bank observing. Similarly, there is a constant stream of thoughts and images, feelings, desires, worries, anxieties, which are all there in the stream of thoughts in the mind. So let us step back and experience how we are peacefully and calmly watching this stream of thoughts. Just letting the stream continue without trying to stop it or redirect it or empty the stream. And to help us enter into this awareness, you can repeat the following meditation. I am the silent witness. I make no effort to think, but thoughts come automatically. I am watching thoughts flow through my mind. I am aloof from them. I am the silent witness of my mind's activities. Now we're going to move on to the next part of our meditation journey, incorporating transcendental sound or mantra into our practice. So we're going to harmonize our breathing, and starting on the third outward breath, we add this transcendental mantra of Gauranga. So let this sound, let this mantra, this transcendental sound, let it be the focus of your meditation. Find rest and peace in this transcendental sound. Now let us inhale together. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Nice deep inhalation. one more time. Now keep your eyes closed and hold attention with the mantra silently in the mind for a few moments. And keeping your eyes closed, you can listen to this meditation now that we're in this nice, calm and relaxed, clear state. This meditation will help us in understanding tonight's discussion, tonight's topic. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. I am not matter. I am not the body. I am not this mind. I am the eternal Spirit Soul, the eternal spark of the Supreme Soul. I am only temporarily in this material body. The body is temporary. I am eternal. Aham Brahmasmi. In the Bhagavad-gita, Sri Krishna says, know that that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable self. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. For the self there is never birth nor death, nor does the self ever cease to exist. The self or spirit soul is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. The self is not slain when the body is slain. So now bring awareness back to the breath. Just feeling that gentle rhythm of each breath again. And perhaps you can become aware of some sound in the external environment. And gently open your eyes to come back to awareness, to the external environment. Okay, so welcome again. It's very nice to spend this time. I get this opportunity to myself consider and to meditate on this yoga wisdom that I've been studying and attempting to apply for, I think it's 40 years now. So the chance I get to revisit this is always good for me, and hopefully, the motivation and the purpose behind holding these Thoughtful Thursday classes is that you also may benefit from the gems of wisdom that come from the yoga teaching, the yoga text. So tonight we're going to be kind of continuing from what we spoke about last week. So perhaps there's some of you who are watching tonight didn't watch last week, or maybe in the future you could be watching this on YouTube or something like that. So there should also be a video on what we discussed last Thursday. It was YOLO, meaning AKA you only live once. Should we use this as, the criteria for the things that we do in life? If you only live once, then of course that rolls out in front of us a certain kind of lifestyle and certain decisions which are in harmony with that view of life, that view of ourselves, that world view. Our whole purpose in life is impacted by that. And as we were discussing, if you only live once, you only have that 60, 70 or perhaps 80 odd years, then we're going to try and cram in as much experiences, as many experiences as is possible, because when it's over, you only live once. So let's just go for it. So tonight's discussion continues on that similar vein. And so tonight we want to look at this idea of, well, what is death? Because we're saying you only live once. Well, what is life? And therefore, what is death? Which is inseparable from understanding who we are, and therefore what our purpose in life is, where happiness is to be found, how we treat others, how we treat this world. All of those things are inseparable from our world view of who we are, what we are here for, what happens to us after this 70 or 80 years or so. So it's inescapable that we also must discuss death, because that's, either death, some people see death, well, most people don't like to even discuss the topic. It's not something that is a common, topic that most people sit around and talk about. But if we do think about it even just a little bit, you'll find different people have different opinions on what death is. Some people might say, well, that's it. It's the end of everything, that you are this body and you are these combinations of, DNA and protein and et cetera, and for whatever reason, when that breaks down, that's it. It's over, buddy. There ain't nothing more. So some people have that point of view. Some people see it as being maybe when you leave this body, death, you or some part of you or your soul or something may go to heaven or hell. So they see there's another destination. Some people may have the idea that, well, death is simply like a transit lounge in an airport. This life is you're here for some time, and death is like passing through that transit lounge, and you enter into another vehicle, another plane, and then you take off again. So it's like a doorway. So you leave this doorway from this particular place that you're staying in now, and you continue your journey as you go into another dimension or another body or some other future situation. So this is what we're looking at. And as we're going through that meditation at the end, first thing we need to do is to understand ourselves, who we are. And then we can get into this topic of what happens at death or after death, what happens after death, and kind of take the discussion from there. So who am I? This topic is something which will come up in almost every discussion in yoga wisdom, and how to apply it to your life, because it is vital to have a clear understanding. So what we're talking about is more or less, what is consciousness? Because if consciousness is what continues at the finish of this body, then what is consciousness? Is it simply due to brain action, certain firing of neurons in the brain, and somehow or other this produces a feeling or an illusion of self that I exist? But it's all just chemically based, it's all just brain action based? Is that truly what consciousness is? Is love and compassion and care, all of these things, simply chemicals? Do they arise from chemicals? Is that what actually love is? Is that what self-awareness is? Is that what compassion is? Simply brain action or chemicals. The yoga science puts forward that no, this is not the case. Consciousness is actually a symptom of the self, and consciousness continues. Consciousness does not have a beginning, and consciousness does not end, and it is not a product of matter. It is not a product of the physical world. What makes up the physical world is the various atoms and subatomic particles, molecules, cells, etc., which come together and create these different forms. But matter itself is not conscious. Consciousness is not present in dead matter. Consciousness is a symptom of life. It is a symptom of the self, of who we are. So how can we prove this? Is this just a belief? Of course, we don't have time to examine it deeply, in depth, in these, time we have for these discussions. But it's not that difficult to understand that there is an active principle present in a live body that is not present in a dead body. In fact, that is the difference between a dead body and a body which is active. So the active principle, consciousness, the self, is present. So we, the Atma, the person, we are that transcendent self. We are that eternal spiritual being, and the symptom of that is the consciousness which spreads through our whole body. Like if you pinch someone's toes, they feel it because consciousness is spread throughout the whole body. If you pinch the toe of a cadaver, of a dead body, there is no reaction to that because there is no conscious living being present, any longer present in that body. So the easiest way to understand this, and even a child can understand it, let alone those of us who are a little older than a child, even though we may have childlike mentality, we've had some experience of life. So if a child can understand it, then we can as well. So to help us in this understanding, I'll ask you a question. Have you ever seen a dead body? Now the dead body perhaps could be a human dead body, or not everybody has been present with someone when they have died, or have actually been up close and personal with a dead body of a human. But perhaps you've had a pet in your life, or various pets, and I'd be surprised, depending on your age, if they haven't died, either been perhaps hit by a car or some disease or just old age, and then you can clearly understand that the person who was in that body, whether it be human or a pet, the person that was present in that body, who you were relating to, who you were affectionate towards, was caring, loving to, that person is now gone. And that's why we then cry or feel great loss or sadness and unhappiness when the person we were loving is no longer present, even though the body which we thought was them, the body in which they were walking around in, is still present. Every single molecule, every single atom, every single material particle that was present in their body when they were alive, in quotes, are all completely and fully and 100% still there in the so-called dead body immediately after the person has died. Because there's a rapid change that happens after the life force, the person has left, but at that moment where the person leaves, and in that period of time, it's very easy to see that the person, the active principle, consciousness itself, is no longer present in that form, in those material elements. Is that understandable? Is that something that you can relate to, or perhaps even has seen and has thought about? So consciousness is a symptom of the presence of the active principle which is moving the body. That active principle is you. It is me, the person, the eternal Atma, temporarily residing within this body. So from the yogic point of view, the yogic understanding, death means that we leave behind this body. For those of you who have read Bhagavad-gita or heard some of our talks before, will understand that this body is described as being like clothes which I, the Atma, the true self, am wearing and walking around in. And in the same way as the clothes that we have on, we don't have the same clothes on today. We're not wearing the same clothes, I would imagine, that you were wearing 10 years ago, or 5 years, even maybe 5 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, or people who are of a similar age to myself, 60 odd years ago. The clothes that I was wearing then as a 5-year-old, of course, would not fit me now. So I have changed my clothes many, many times over that 60 odd years. So similarly, this body is constantly changing. The body we have today is not the same body we had 3 to 5 years ago. It is a completely different body. The body, the atomic structure of the body, the matter that makes up our body is constantly changing. So that the body we have today, all the material particles which make it up, were not present 3, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in my case 60 odd years ago. They are constantly being updated and constantly being replaced as we take in new material particles in the form of our food, water, air, the sun, etc., etc. So this exchange is constantly taking place. So therefore, the body I have today cannot be me, because I existed 5 years ago. I existed 10 years ago. I remember existing 60 years ago, 62 years ago. I was there 62 years ago. Certain things happened to me. I remember them because I was there, and yet the body has changed many times, 20 odd times. I've had 20 different bodies, so to speak, in those 60 odd years. So that constant principle is not the body, it is not the ever-changing mind, because the mind is where we keep memories and feelings, and they are not me. I changed my mind. So we really understand that we are different from our mind. That's why we do the mindfulness meditation practice. So the body is constantly changing, but there is a constant factor, a constant active principle. That is you, that is me. So that's the first thing that we need to understand about the nature of the self being different than material energy. We are not matter, and we are not these bodies. So there are a couple of nice things I wanted to read from the Bhagavad-gita, where Krishna makes things really, really nicely clear for us. This might actually be from the Srimad Bhagavatam, another Vedic text, wherein it says, "As the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness." So there is giving us that clear understanding, the difference between a body when a person is in it, and a body when the person is no longer present in it, has left, what we call death, is this symptom of consciousness. Let me see, there we go. So this is also the next important step for us to take in our attempt to understand what happens at death. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So I'd like to read that again, if you can just consider it, contemplate upon what Krishna is teaching us here. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul or self similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So this is actually very scientific. It is not simply a religious dogma. Now let's examine this a little bit in light of what we were discussing previously about how the body is constantly changing. But there is a constant principle, an active principle, which is consciousness. So the idea of reincarnation, if we look at that term, this is what we're speaking about tonight. Reincarnation, the word re means again, and carnation comes from the root word carnal, which means a flesh and blood physical body. So reincarnation means that a person, a self, is present in one particular physical body. They leave that body and then they enter into another, a different physical body. This is a very clear definition of reincarnation. A person is in one body, they live in that body for some time, they engage in activities in that body, and then when the body changes, we call this death, the body changes, it can no longer be inhabited, then the self continues to exist but takes on another body. Now we come back to that, what we read from Krishna in our previous discussion. Reincarnation means that. So we have already reincarnated in this so-called life. This has nothing to do with a particular religious belief. If we understand that definition of reincarnation, being in one body for some time, leaving it, taking on a different body, then this idea of the scientific reality of how the body is changing every 3 to 5 years then can help us to understand that we were in one particular body, as Krishna says here in the Bhagavad-gita. The conditioned soul, of course, enters into a baby body, the cute little baby body, and there is the person present in that body. And then, of course, that body continues to grow, and it's quite easy to see that change and growth, from a baby body to a toddler and so on, until the person gets to be school age, all that kind of thing. It's very easy to see how that's a completely different body. So at that point, then they're in the boyhood body or the girl body. So we're living in that young body. We're living in that 5-year-old body. Here I am doing 5-year-old things. And then I continue down my journey in life, and then I reach my teenage years, 13. Okay, so this is quite a few years on from the 5-year-old body. So I was there in the 5-year-old body. I had a certain kind of awareness or world experience or idea of life at that time. And then at 13, of course, through life experience, my mind, so to speak, has different ideas. But that 13-year-old body that I am now living in is a completely different body than the 5-year-old body. And then Krishna goes on to explain from boyhood to youth. So we get to be 18, 19, 20, something like that. Again, a different body than the 12, 13-year-old body or 5-year-old body. And then he says a person takes on an adult body, around your 30s, 40s. And then he says, similarly, the soul goes into the old age body. So for someone like myself, who would be probably categorized in the old age category of body, younger people look at me, and they say, well, here's this old dude, he's getting the spots and the wrinkles and the saggy things, so this guy is an old dude. So therefore I can remember back to my 5-year-old experience, my teenage years, my 20s, 30s, 40s kind of years. And now in my 60s, I'm still aware that I exist. I existed then, and I exist now. So we've already reincarnated many times from our birth up to this point. Hopefully that's something you can understand or consider. I'm in a different body now. This is not the 5-year-old body. This is not the 18-year-old body. This is not the 20-year-old body, the 30-year-old body, the 40-year-old body, even the 50-year-old body. It is a completely different body. So I have already transmigrated or reincarnated many times into different bodies in the last 60 odd years. So this same pattern continues when this body becomes too old or decrepit or diseased and it is no longer, able to be lived in. Then I, the person, will leave this behind and my journey will continue. In the same way as when these clothes are too raggedy, I will discard them, but I won't be walking around naked. I'll be putting on a different set of clothes. So this is the reality of death. The self continues. Consciousness, which is a symptom of the self, continues. And it is no longer present in that dead body. The person is no longer there. The brain is still there. There is no consciousness present. So this should be able to understood by everybody, actually, if you consider it a little deeply. So the next thing we wanted to move into, with this clear understanding, then this life, because either self, as we read and as we, Krishna explained and as we did in our earlier meditation, the living being, me, you, I am eternal. And eternal means there was no beginning to my existence. Never was there a time that I did not exist. I have always existed. And never in the future shall I cease to exist. I will always exist. Life is life. And I am life. So therefore there is nothing to this idea that I die. Nobody dies. We change bodies in the same way as we change clothes. So this life that we have now, which we place so much worry and stress on, the things that are taking place, the different experiences and the different relationships that we all have in this 60, 70 or 80 years, we see this as being all in all. And we're ready to commit suicide even, or become, alcoholics or addicted to certain drugs and things because of how we're allowing things in this life to impact and to get us down and to make us depressed. The reality is that this life is a very short span of time. Like in the time span of eternity, from the vision of eternity, this one so-called life, and I say the word so-called because it's not like we take on another life when we leave this body. Life is life. We are life. We simply leave this vehicle behind, or this apartment behind, and go to live in a different apartment. So even that idea of do you have many lives is not actually accurate. We only have one life, but we have different experiences as we go through these different bodies that we take on, or incarnations, taking on bodies. So yes, this life is but a short flash of time, less than a moment of eternity. So we should not make plans for our life simply centered around this very brief moment. We do the needful, we take care of our responsibilities, but we don't place all of our hopes and dreams and wishes and plans and desires in this one flash of time. We are eternal spiritual beings. Our life is long. Our life is non-ending. we are eternal sparks of the Supreme Soul. So to cultivate that spiritual relationship with the Supreme is actually the purpose and the goal of our life. And that is done through spiritual cultivation. So maybe we'll touch, because this is connected, we'll touch briefly on the idea that what determines what kind of body I will take on when I leave this body behind. So we're just going to touch on this briefly to introduce the understanding. So again, we turn to the yoga text, the sacred spiritual text of yoga. And in there is a very clear description of what causes a person to take on another body and what kind of body that they will take on. So there are a number of factors. One being what is known commonly as karma. So karma simply means action. And every day, at every moment, we're engaging in some action. But according to those actions, there will be a certain outcome or a certain result, which is described as karmic reaction. As we sow, so shall we reap. So we are accruing a stock, a bank account of what can be described as good and bad karma. So this karma, reaction to my actions, is laying down the tracks for my future destiny. In the same way that train tracks are laid ahead of the train so that the train can then travel to its destination, similarly, we are laying down tracks to our future destiny by the activities which we engage in every day, in every moment of our life. So karmic reaction is one of the things which is determining what our destiny will be, because we have laid that down ahead of us by what we're doing now. So this is one of the factors determining what my destiny will be. So it's very important, the actions that we engage in. So similarly, the actions we engage in, what we do with our senses, cultivates a certain kind of mindset or awareness or consciousness in that, the state of my consciousness, so to speak. So by all the things I see, I listen to, the actions I engage in are having a huge impact in my mind, which also means with my desires and my worldview and my plans in life are all impacted. If we see a movie or we see a documentary or we have a conversation with someone about a movie that they went and saw, and if they really talk the movie up, of course this external action of listening has the impact that I'll probably go and see that movie because this person told me how good it is. And then of course the movies we watch are putting certain impressions into our mind, the things that we read, the music that we listen to. All of this is molding our consciousness, our mind. So we also understand that at the time of leaving this body, if I am not perfectly spiritually realized, and I still have karmic reaction, and I still have material desires and attachments, and the state of my consciousness at the time of death, this also determines what my destiny will be, where I will go, and what I will experience when I leave this body behind. So it's also vital to understand this connection between our actions in life and what our future destiny is, but also our actions in life and how this molds my consciousness, my awareness, and as we said, therefore desires. And then of course, actions lead to desires, stimulates the desires that are in the mind, which then, the desires in the mind then move me to engage in certain actions to fulfill the desires that are there in the mind, and therefore adding to this karmic stock of good and bad reactions. So they kind of like this feed off each other. So when I leave this body behind, I leave behind the gross physical body, the external body. But if I am not perfectly spiritually realized, I am still covered by what is known as the astral body or the subtle material body, which means the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, these desires, which are still desires and attachments, which are all there in the mind, in the subtle body. So the shape of this subtle body, which has been molded by my life's journey, the shape of that subtle body is the template around which the next gross physical body will fit. So there is a vital link between my actions in life, the state of my mind, the kind of consciousness I cultivate, and what my destiny will be, not only when I leave this body, but during this journey in life as well. So therefore, understanding this reality, this is but a spot in time. This whole experience of 70 or 80 years, whatever it may be, is but a stop. If you like in a whole book, like a book, a hardcover book, there's a dot. There's many dots within a novel. Let's say something like War and Peace, how big that is. And there are full stops, or periods, or whatever they're called in the US and other countries. So this life is just like that stop, that little dot. There are many, many other things, many other dots. So do not see or think that this one 60 or 70 years, this one so-called life, is all there is. It is but one spot in the eternity of time. So let us be introspective. Let us consider this wisdom that yoga and the acharyas, the spiritual teachers, the self-realized souls are giving to us, and let us see how we can actually live in harmony with this reality. So understanding that life does not end at the end of this body, understanding the connection between my actions, karma, molding my consciousness, it means we can actively decide or direct what our destiny will be, where we will go, what will happen to me when I leave this body, this spot in time behind. So some people, in the yogic or Vedic tradition, there are many teachings in there how a person can elevate their consciousness in certain ways and how they can actually even achieve material enjoyment in heavenly planets and things like that. So there's certain things that they engage in with the hope of getting a better life in their next life, trying to engage in more good activities than bad activities, hoping that in the next life, I'll get a whole stock of good karma coming back to me and I will have a better life than I actually have in this life. So many people see it like that and try to engage in activities to achieve that goal. But the sages, Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita and all the great sages, self-realized acharyas say, no, we should not want to come back. We should actually utilize this precious human life to make this our last go-round in this journey we call material life. This is not our home. Even good karma is not enough to satisfy me. I am a spiritual being and I need spiritual food. I need to be in that spiritual dimension from where I have come, that world of Sat Chit Ananda, eternity, wisdom and bliss. We actually are meant to be in that world, in that consciousness, in that dimension. And this is the true purpose and meaning to our life, is to cultivate that spiritual consciousness. And therefore the destiny will be spiritual. Because even if we come back into another body in a so-called improved condition, still we must go through this reality of material existence, which includes, as long as we have a body, it includes birth, diseases, old age, and death. That comes along even to those who have extremely good karma. So it is not the goal, it is not what we should be striving for. We should strive for a life where there is no more repeated birth, death, diseases, old age, and all the things that come with that. The grey hair, the arthritis, the wrinkly skins, the impact of gravity, broken love affairs, broken bodies, broken bones, broken careers, all the things that happen here. Let us make our destiny Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of wisdom and blissful, because that is our intrinsic nature. We, the Atma, are Sat Chit Ananda. So we belong in that Sat Chit Ananda dimension, not in this world, which is temporary, full of ignorance and suffering, the exact opposite to what we are actually looking for. So to cultivate our relationship with the Sat Chit Ananda, Supreme Soul, Supreme Person, this is the goal of life. And yoga offers the tools and practices, the wisdom, the understanding by which we can achieve that goal in this one lifetime. We don't have to continue on this wheel, this samsara, this wheel of repeated birth and death. It is within the potential of every single one of us to actually get off of this wheel of samsara in this lifetime. We simply need to hear this truth. We need to hear and learn and then apply the practices of yoga meditation so that we can impact our destiny by impacting our actions in life so that they do not create reactions, either good or bad. Good karma is as undesirable as bad karma for the aspiring transcendentalist. So we want to engage in what is known as karma yoga or bhakti yoga. Karma, again meaning actions which we engage in. Yoga means in harmony with the Supreme. Bhakti yoga, means loving devotional service to the Supreme and to all living beings. So through this bhakti yoga system, we can learn how to live a life which does not bind us to the material world, to the wheel of samsara, of birth and death, but actually helps to liberate us and helps to bring us back to our natural spiritual state, our spiritual condition, awareness of our true identity. And simultaneously, these spiritual activities, what is known as sadhana or spiritual cultivation, also cultivates a spiritual consciousness. So then, when I'm reaching the end of this body, the subtle body, material desires, attachments, plans, material plans, etc., is no longer present. That is just pure spiritual consciousness. So therefore my destiny is to leave this mortal coil, to leave this material dimension completely and go to that eternal dimension of Sat Chit Ananda, where we continue that loving devotion to the Supreme which we cultivated in this lifetime. So this is known as bhakti yoga, on how to be in the world but not of the world. And this requires knowledge, wisdom, understanding. It requires to learn the techniques to live such a life of bhakti, of loving devotion. And then this is then laying down the tracks for my spiritual destiny. So what is the best way to cultivate that spiritual consciousness? It's what we do a lot of here at the Australian School of Meditation and Yoga. As we have received this gift of yoga, the greatest gift, at the heart of the gift of yoga, is this practice of mantra meditation, or meditation upon the holy names, the divine names of the Supreme. Because there is no difference between the holy name of the Supreme and the Supreme. So, because God is all pure and all purifying, then when we meditate upon these divine names, we are in direct contact, association, yoga, union with the Supreme Soul, and our heart and mind becomes purified by the purifying agent of the All Love, the holy names of the All Love. So there are various ways to practice this mantra meditation. One is, as we were doing at the beginning of this broadcast, you can incorporate mantra to breath. There are no musical instruments, not singing, and as we did at the end, you can also meditate silently, just in the mind, have awareness and meditation on the transcendental sound of the mantra. So right there is two very simple ways that you can practice wherever you are, at home, whatever country you're in. There is also then, you can practice what's known as Japa Meditation. It's where there are Japa Mala beads, and you actually touch the mantra to the beads. You say the mantra aloud as you listen to the sound, and you touch the Japa Mala. So this is another personal meditation practice that you can learn. We teach that here as well. Very easy. And then we come to what is our favorite, which is known as kirtan, or sankirtan. So kirtan means the singing with musical instruments sometimes of these divine names, these transcendental names of the Supreme. So this kirtan or sankirtan means a group, chanting with others, these mantras, as opposed to a personal practice where there's just you doing it. This is described in the yoga text as the Yuga Dharma, or it is the spiritual practice, it is the spiritual sadhana in this age by which we can all achieve spiritual perfection. Whatever our background is, whatever we've gone through, whatever our education, sex, nationality, intelligence level, physical abilities or lack of physical abilities, all of these things have no impact, they're no impediment to achieving spiritual perfection by this very powerful, easy, wonderful, beautiful, uplifting, life-changing practice of kirtan. Because this purifies the heart and the mind of all the pollution, all the contamination that we have accumulated through many lifetimes, journeys through this material dimension. And it gives us a taste for that spiritual happiness, that nectar, which I, the Atma, am looking for. And that nectar is actually spiritual love. That nectar is union with the Supreme, union with the Divine. So on that note, let us cross over and finish with some of this sadhana, this kirtan practice. And Madhulila is going to join us, and she's going to lead us in this practice. So, get your singing voices on. So, we're really hoping that you at home will sing along. So, Madhulila will lead us in the kirtan, and we listen while she sings for us, and then we will sing after her. So, please join along at home.
We're going to sing the Maha-Mantra.
Ah, nice.
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama.
If you'd like to just sit and listen, that's okay as well. But we'd like you to join in.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
That's our kirtan. That's the right there is just simply adding this as a regular part of your life. Will actually, I was going to say help you achieve spiritual perfection, but actually it can bring you very easily to the transcendental platform of spiritual love. So please find some time in your life when things maybe are not going so well. Make sure you immerse yourself in kirtan, and when things are going really, really well, make sure you immerse yourself in kirtan, and you will make steady and definite progress in your spiritual life.
We stream kirtan live on Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights, Tuesday afternoons. So please tune in. If you go to www.asmy.tv, you'll see all of our past streams, and we put our upcoming streams on there as well. So you can check that out. We stream it here on Facebook and also on YouTube.
And pass on some links to friends and family. Don't be afraid. They may actually enjoy it as much as you do. So have a look. Maybe there's some particular talk or some kirtan or some yoga asana work, class that you might think someone else likes. So copy the link and send it to them. Let them discover these gems of yoga as well. Are we done? We're done for another night.
If you have questions, one question came in during the class. If you have questions, send them through, and we might be able to address them in another talk, or just send you a message to answer your questions. We love questions. So thank you very much, and please keep sending them.
Okay, so now we'll have our friend and tech guy close the session. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,